Welcome back to An Audience of One by Gen Diversity, in which we deliver spiritually uplifting and motivational content to individuals who are looking to change their lives and improve their situations, and to act as a reminder to those who feel like they may have made too many mistakes to which there is no coming back from, and to remind them that they have worth and they have value, and that success is not some destination that you arrive at, but rather success is in the process of the struggle to continuously try to improve your situation. Let's get this out of the way early on. If you're going to make any progress on this journey, you have to be very clear with yourself that success is not going to be linear. You are going to make mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes repeatedly. There is no arrival moment at which, after that point, you're going to be free from faults, mistakes, shortcomings, transgressions against yourself, transgressions against others, or against your spiritual and ethical code of conduct that you try to live your life by. One of the reasons why you've continued to fail in the past is because you've continued to give yourself this launch date, much like a New Year's resolution, where you say to yourself, I hereby swear that I will never again commit any of the moral failures that I've ever succumbed to. I will forever leave every vice that has ever plagued my soul or body, and from here on out, I will not commit anything except for righteous acts. And that's complete and utter nonsense. First of all, it's just not going to happen. Yes, there are some people out there that would like to impress upon you that there was this one singular point in which they changed their life and forever thereafter were just crushing it. And although it's possible with some exaggeration to point back to a specific moment for most people where there was this catalyst which propelled them forward towards change, there's no one on God's earth walking today that is free from fault, that doesn't have mistakes, and that doesn't transgress. And even if somebody were to have one of those catalyst moments where from that point onward, they changed their lives for the better and they continued to improve, they're still going to have transgressions. They're still going to have mistakes. They're still going to fail. They're still going to have doubts. They're still going to have moments in their life where they struggle. There are going to be times where everyone has self-doubt, where they have insecurities. This is the way that God created life. It is a test, and no one gets out with a perfect score. Sure, you may find people who avoid falling into the major blunders, but nobody gets out of life without making mistakes. They're still going to struggle at things. There are two major reasons why this fallacy of an overnight success story with regards to individual self-improvement is super detrimental, is that first and foremost, you create this unattainable standard. And second is that when you fail to hit that unattainable standard, which you inevitably will fail to hit, you're going to create a lot of pain and frustration inside of yourself, which is almost certainly going to cause you to tailspin into a lot of self-doubt and self-sabotage. So when the only form of success is perfection, you're most certainly going to set yourself up for a lot of disappointment and eventually despair. Usually the problems that we face as individuals are not one specific individual problem. They are multiple, they're complex, and they're complementary, and they tend to pile up. Usually when you find somebody struggling, you don't find them to be struggling in one area. Human beings are complex. There's a lot that they have going on. So we typically struggle in varying areas to varying degrees. And so it's very, very unlikely that you're going to find someone who's capable of addressing all of their problems all at once and doing so successfully. And you're the type of person that you're an idealist. You see the world as black and white. It's either everything or nothing. You are either whole or you're broken. And you have to come to grips with the fact that your worldview is incorrect. And as much as it's helped you to become who you have been in the past, it has also held you back in a lot of ways. So you just have to realize that you are not going to fix everything overnight. And there are going to be some problems that you will fix, but you're still going to have to continue to be vigilant with. And then there's other problems that you might not be able to completely fix, but you're going to have to try and manage. So I want to break down even further the two main reasons why thinking that you're going to right the ship in one maneuver and never look back can be really problematic. So the first problem with approaching your self-improvement as a all or nothing situation is that it prevents you from making progress in areas that may be easy victories. Look, any progress is progress, and sometimes progress is going to be just putting ourselves in a situation where the good deeds that we conduct outweigh the bad deeds that we commit. When you think that everything has to be right today, every day, all the time, from here on out, again, you create this impossible standard to not only attain, but to maintain. And And when everything has to be corrected all at once, again, it stops you from having those small little victories. There's a theory out there that says that when you're addressing your problems, that you have to attack the biggest one first. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like attack the elephant in the room. If you could tackle the biggest problem, then everything proceeding after that should be pretty easy. And if you can do that, great. Problem is, if attacking the biggest demon in the room was that simple, you would have done it by now. And it's the very fact that you oftentimes start with the biggest battle first that is the reason why you continue to fail. Instead of picking small and easy battles to win to build up momentum, you attack the biggest problem, you fail, and that reoccurring failure has all of this negative effect on your outlook of yourself and your ability to actually address any problems. And so you've been down this road before where your continued failure to address these larger issues reinforces your feeling of failure and your feeling of despair and helplessness in addressing any of your problems at all. So in this version of our video game, we don't attack the big boss right away. We've got to go through a bunch of little trials first, build up in levels, build up in confidence, build up in skill. Then we can go and attack the big boss. And this isn't to say that you can't or shouldn't address the biggest issue in the room. If you can, go for it. That's great. But if you're struggling, don't forget to address other issues and look at areas where you can create small little victories to build up your confidence, build up your skill and your resilience, and your ability to have confidence in yourself that when you say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to stop doing this, that you actually start to create a track record of success. You can't fight every battle at once. The fact that you may need to leave off some battles while you fight other battles in order to win the war doesn't mean that you're a failure. Any progress is progress, so work on what you can. The fight that you're fighting the battle in the first place means that you're winning. When you fail to have any success, you continue to reinforce that negative self-talk that you're a failure and that you're a liar because you continue to lie to yourself when you say, I'm going to do this, but you don't. I'm going to do this, but you don't. So we want to find sometimes the low-hanging fruit that will allow us to create these small little victories that we can build upon. Show yourself that you can have success, that you can change, that you can hold true to the promises that you make to yourself. I get that you want to change everything overnight. I get that you want to fix your situation and as fast as possible. And I know that you are completely destroyed sometimes emotionally and mentally with this idea of constantly struggling day after day after day and sometimes feeling like you're just not getting anywhere. But you have to remember that there are so many people out there that are completely asleep at the wheel. They don't even recognize that there's a problem with themselves or the way that they're living their lives. So the fact that you not only recognize that you have these problems in your life, in your character, in your spiritual practice, and then on top of that, you're willing to work to try to correct them is absolutely phenomenal. And you have to be proud of yourself for that effort in that struggle. And you have to realize this is a 13-round championship fight. You are going to get hit. You are going to get knocked down, but you're going to fight. And if you get knocked down, you're going to get back up. And you're not going to think about the punches that you took. You're going to think about the punches that are coming, and you're going to continue to fight. So the first problem with this all or nothing mentality is that it is nearly impossible to attain. But the second problem is that it's nearly impossible to maintain. When you set such strict standards for yourself, even if you get to this point where you feel like you've arrived, it is extremely difficult, if not outright impossible, for you to constantly, for the rest of your life, maintain that level of practice of whatever it is that you're trying to do. And the reason why setting such a standard is so dangerous is because anything other than perfection is failure. When you set this hard date or this hard rule that from here on out, I will always do this, or from here on out, I will never do this, the devil's basically kicking up his feet laughing at you. You've made his job incredibly easy because you are going to fail at times. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to relapse. You're going to have bad days, bad weeks, bad months, bad years. You're going to lose your cool. You're going to get frustrated. This is life. And the way in which we view how we conduct it should not be based upon some fairy tale out of this world being that exists out of the natural order of what we call reality. And so again, success is not linear. And when you set up this bar which is at the level of perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure. And especially in your situation where you're already down and out, you're down on yourself because of what you've done, because of what you haven't done, because of where you're at, because of where you know you should be. When you're consumed with despair of your own situation, the last thing on earth that you need to do is create a scenario for yourself where the only true success is perfection, and every and any failure, regardless of its size, is deemed a doomsday scenario. Perfection is the enemy of progress. You're never going to be perfect, and so you shouldn't aim to be. Yes, we're striving towards perfection, but we know that that's an unattainable goal. You're going to get banged up along the way. But guess what? Everybody does. There are no exceptions to that rule. No one is perfect. And when you fall into the trap of believing that you have to be perfect, you fall into the mistake of, if I can't be perfect, then what's the point of even trying? Because if you can't be perfect, then no effort is meaningful, and that is completely incorrect. Every effort to improve yourself is progress. The goal is to do more good than you do harm. When you make a mistake, feel that remorse. Seek forgiveness from the appropriate parties, follow it up with a good deed, but don't dwell on it too much. Recognize it for what it is, learn from it, but move on. When you do that, when you make a mistake, you feel that remorse, you seek forgiveness, you follow it up with a good deed, treat it like an automatic reset. So along this journey, you have to recognize that you are going to make mistakes. They are inevitable. That doesn't mean we condone them. That doesn't mean that we encourage them, but you have to recognize that, unfortunately, they are part of the process. They're there for us to learn from and to overcome. They're not there for us to fill our hearts with despair. At the end of the day, you have to look at your overall body of work and the trajectory of where you're going. You don't ignore your mistakes. You acknowledge them, you correct them, you seek forgiveness for them, but you don't dwell on them and you don't allow them to define who you see yourself as. If the best that you can do with the rest of your life is to fight and struggle day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, with all of the different vices that plague your body and plague your soul, and the difficult habits that you have trouble trying to overcome, or the self-doubts or the insecurities, and all you do is continue to struggle for the rest of your life with that, then that's something to be proud of. Because again, remember, there are so many people that aren't even in the fight. You get down on yourself because you're focusing on the mistakes when you should be focusing on the struggle, because oftentimes we forget to recognize within ourselves that the struggle is part of our resume of good deeds. Again, remember, there are large amounts of people that have no self-accountability. They don't care about their actions, how it affects themselves, how it affects others. You have the opposite problem. You're so overwhelmed with the guilt of the transgressions that you've made, that you've swung to the other side of the pendulum where you've given up. You've become overcome with the fear of, what if people find out about all of my shortcomings? How will they view me? Will they ever accept me? Will they ever welcome me? And you've become so overcome with this fear that you've become paralyzed into inaction. And you can't improve if you don't move, and that's the trap. That's the greatest play the devil could have ever played on anybody, which was convincing them that any and all efforts were futile and you should just give up and his job is over. So the idea that you would spend the rest of your life struggling to overcome your shortcomings is one of the most honorable acts ever. Remember, some people aren't even trying. Some people don't even recognize that they have any faults at all. If the best that you could do is to struggle for the rest of your life, to improve yourself, to overcome your shortcomings, to control your vices and your habits, and to be known as, yeah, man, that guy's got a lot of problems, but I'll give him that, man. He don't stop trying. I'd be proud of you. And I believe you have it in you, not only to overcome your shortcomings, but to overcome the demons that have plagued your life. This is just a chapter of your story. It's a period of struggle that you have to go through. But it's just a chapter. It's not the entire story. There is more to be written. And that's a story I want to read.